Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday frequency. And this time, no real topic. It's time for Ask Me Anything. Um, and I hope you brought a couple of questions, and I really hope that we can answer them. Um, and I'm actually very sure that we're going to have a good discussion today. And one of the reasons why I'm so sure is because we have a special guest today, Cedric Huesler, who is running product for AEM sites. So, Cedric, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here.
Yep. Um, Back in let's see, it's bright and early here. Still, where am I? In Basel.
Yeah,
Yeah, time zone wise, not my usual San Francisco early morning stuff.
yeah,
So I can actually attend.
great. So, yeah, why don't we start? I think Duki, you posted a couple of questions. I know that you are prepared, and I hope you're okay if I call you up first.
Yeah, sure. So like my background, I'm a front-end engineer, so I don't have too much to do with AAM. But
Hmm.
like in my company, I got the task like to discover AI possibilities because like AI is currently in trend, right? And it's hyped. And I've discovered that there's like, for example, for the assets, DEM, AAM DEM, that Firefly will be like available with Adobe Express, and for AAM sites, there's something called like generate variations.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering like how can we use this in our local AAM Cloud SDK, um, or is it not possible, or like how do I get started when I want to play around with this locally? So the overall background is that like we want to be prepared like when the customer comes to us, or we go proactively to our customers and suggest them, okay, Adobe is currently working on this, and you could use this because this would help you developing your business, because like it will save you time, it will save you effort, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that one. So again, there's various capabilities that we are working on, but the one that you specifically mentioned, which is create variations, that is currently available. I mean, the application itself is not in the quick start, if you think of it that way, right? The application itself is a SaaS application that we're running here at Adobe, and that SaaS application is integrated into our UI, or into various places within your UI. For example, Sidekick, there's an integration into the Sidekick, which is documented of how to enable it, or it's also integrated within the content fragment editor. We use the cloud version, AEM as a cloud service version, and so maybe a few other places by now. Forgot, but it's ultimately always the same application. The purpose of that is it basically helps you with, it's like a prompt engineering UI, I guess. It really helps to do kind of preparation prompt templates for not you but your customer to use, and you preparing the prompt templates for various places they regularly need to create content or variations of content, and then the idea is that this is a self-service UI where folks can, like the actual writers or the marketing the folks in marketing can go in and either use that as for inspiration or actually produce ready-made content that ultimately goes back into AEM at the end of the process. There's various ways to get back into AEM, either by looking at certain favorites and then running maybe an approval on those before you put it in. For content fragments, we actually wrote it in a way that it creates variations of content fragments. Again, all with the purpose that these variations are used for either experimentation or presentation purpose. Yeah, just to understand the use case. This is not like, AI to create a whole page or create a whole site. this is really this, I guess, not narrow, but well, it's a narrow use case, but it's a very important use case, particularly in marketing, to create flavors of existing content for various audiences in order to use maybe existing audiences that have already been created, either Adobe Target, HAO, or whatever presentation engine you ended up using. And yeah, so that's the background behind this feature. Now, to your specific question, currently that's only available for folks that are using edge-level services with document-based editing, and number two, for folks that are on cloud service. And the reason, just explain the reason for that, that feature is obviously not free because it needs an LLM to power, and and I'm sure everybody got the message. It's not cheap either. I know OpenAI gives you ChatGPT for free for some extent. I don't know how they pay for it. Some venture capitals probably are feeding the bill or somehow. But so therefore, you do need a certain SKU, which is basically our new, we call it edge delivery services SKU. And the customer has the edge delivery services SKU, which includes entitlements for AI services.
Okay, all right. So this means you just mentioned it's not available in the CX Quick Start. So locally, like we cannot access it. So this means we can only use it, for example, if we have a sandbox from Adobe, like our company has like access to a sandbox, and then we would need to request access so we can.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I can figure this out
around.
whenever partners. You're working for a partner, right? Oh no, it doesn't matter. But I think folks that have sandboxes, and I know a lot of partners have, whatever we have made it available to those for you. Again, the whole point is you need to somehow try it out, of course. Otherwise, how could you recommend it to a customer to use, right? But I understand that part. Let me figure this out. I don't know the answer, but I'll figure it out.
It's also,
and I think
maybe one additional, it's also not available for on the rapid development environments, or could we access it through that?
You should. Again, I think the check that is happening. There's a check that is in the UI, and it checks for the edge services SKU entitlement, and if your program is entitled for that, you should see it. Now, again, I think what I don't know is if the partner sandboxes have been,
No.
but
But on the client ones, if the client has it enabled, would it be also visible on the rapid development environment?
Yes, I would believe so. I haven't checked that myself, but I would believe so. Yes, because I don't think there's any difference there. It's like the same code runs, right? Every time.
Okay, then you can test it there.
Yeah, good question.
I have one final question regarding AI, I guess. So Experience Manager has something like smart imaging. I think this has been there for a while already, like that it optimizes the size of the image. And now it seems like Firefly and Generate Variations are like two things which are like newer, like things that are really fresh. Like, are there any other AI products or like features which are relatively new, like not older than 1 year, for example? And if yes, which products are those, and which products will in the next 6 months, if there are any planned?
Yeah, so again, I can speak for sites. For assets, I know well, first of all, what is available today? Correct. So through the Express integration, there is obviously the availability of all the things that Express can do. It's its own roadmap, of course. And what the Firefly team also has just shipped last week, is what we call Firefly Services. It's basically a public API to integrate Firefly into applications. So that's also, it's not just like, that makes this also for us like as even though we're an internal team, there wasn't an API that we could use properly. So that's why we had to use Express. But now that there's an API for Firefly, it can be used both internally between products, I guess, at Adobe, but also for you folks, if you want to build your own applications based on that, that allows us to build more things. So I think that's currently, obviously we're exploring there what can be done with those Firefly. It's called Firefly services. Just now, having said that, the assets team internally has multiple things that they want to do. One of them that I just recently saw was particularly interesting for accessibility, to produce really good image descriptions for alt text, right? Because if you generate alt text, you need a really reasonably good description for images for accessibility purpose, and so that's a good use case for like, when new assets are uploaded to just do that. Good. On the sites side of things, again, for us, most important is still this generate variation feature that we really want to invest a lot more into this. The other thing that we're working on is that's a little bit of again, it's not available yet, but it's really this idea that you can make how do I describe that yet? Imagine you got a site built that has certain components and certain text, and you basically want to have certain suggestions, like say, hey, what could I improve here? Or like because we're collecting data, RUM data, right, for the experiences, that you can say, hey, what could I improve here? And then we are giving suggestions, and part of that is actually running some hypothesis on LLM. Anyway, so there's around this whole subject of detecting issues that you might have on your site. I mean, that I don't mean technical issues, but I mean content performance, like that you got a significant drop-off rate, or people get to the page, but then they're not really engaging with it. Whatever this kind of information, and using that to figure out if there's anything that we could suggest on the content. And anyway, so that's, I know, certainly an interesting area for us to focus on. So it's not directly like ChatGPT integration or whatever. It's really just being more proactive and about what's happening on the site, and suggesting possible improvements to that, or suggesting experiments that you could try, because there's almost no harm. If the experiment yields better results, great. If not, then at least nothing lost.
Yeah, and the suggestions for the alt tags are not existing yet, right? It's planned feature, or
Correct. Well, actually, I need to check the timing when it's exactly ships, but that is, I think, mostly ready. It's probably just a question of maybe a month or two or whatever it's going to come out.
okay. And you mentioned there's an API for Firefly, so will there be also API for generate variations? Like we can
Not planned right now. We haven't. It's not. I mean, we haven't talked about. I mean, I know others have asked for it, but honestly, the again, from our point of view, we really want to. It's the API. The value of the API is like limited. Think it that way. The value is really the UI that helps people to go through the process of creating multiple variations, going through a certain workflow to get them, like, I guess, accepted within the enterprise, and then ultimately launch. Maybe just I don't want to take the whole time here, but give you a little bit of a story. So this generate variation feature been around for like a year now. I know GA was only in January, but or whatever GA was. No, I think it was in Summit. But and again, we've been using it for a while in-house. So if you go to adobe.com, if you go to the adobe.com homepage, unauthenticated, let's just use a browser window that is the incognito window on Chrome or something. And so if you go to the homepage of adobe.com, so that content that you see on that page has been generated with generate variations. We have hundreds of variations of the content that is running on that page, and it's a continuous test to see whatever with Gen AI, we can create better performing text. And it's not images, just text. And actually, it's fascinating. And we've been doing this for a while, and we've been able to. Again, I can't disclose any numbers here, but not my task to do. But it has caused definitely very much interest within our marketing organization. That with just if you say it that way, playing with words. It's obviously more serious than that, but we were able to definitely get a good amount of lift as in more conversion, more revenue for Adobe, particularly on the creative cloud side business. Anyway, just wanted to call that out. This feature is correctly applied, could be very powerful. But again, the value is not so much in the mechanics. The value is really this workflow that within your marketing organization or within the customers you work with, customers, marketing organization, to bring that into their workflow, to not just always think of one version of the content to be created and agonizing over every single word in that one version you're creating. Think of always at any given time creating 100 variations of the same content for different audiences, for different, slightly different, maybe arguments that you want to. So this always thinking of we need to find the perfect sentence to say something gets a little bit out of the way by really just saying everything's an experiment. Anyway, I'll stop. But that doesn't mean you have really good tracking, really good attribution. So if your analytics team is up for snuff, then you gotta have fun.
Okay. And you mentioned it's available in the content fragment. So this means when I'm an AAM where the customer can enter some text, then I can just say in my code somehow, okay, this place should use or at this place the generate variation is like enabled, and then the customer can, when he uses the component, use the generate variations on AM offer, for example.
Yeah, it's not quite. I mean, I see where you're coming from. It's not quite that. We might get to that point with the way you said it. Today, it's more. It's like It's almost like you think of it's almost like it's a little bit of an independent application. Yes, we're trying to bring the context of where you're working on into it, so that's helpful. But it's not as tight. It's not as tight coupled yet, just because you're actually generating content, and then when you generate the content, you might want to still like copy paste it in a slightly different way than it was generated. Anyway, so there's the handover from once the generation is done to, I think the content fragments is pretty straightforward because the structure is clear. We can just feed it back. If you think of document based editing with Word, we basically just give you the text and you have to copy paste it in the right places back because we can't really tell where you might need to go, or at least in my case. But I think the real time saver here is coming up with hundreds of variations that are reasonable and that a marketing team would accept and say that's okay to be on a homepage or a landing page, whatever the content will show up. That's a time saver to getting the content in the right place, creating an experiment, making sure the experiment is set up properly, what all that. That is still something that it's now version 2 of this generate variation feature that we're working on right now. Will actually take care of this part so that you can select the variation you want, if it's create experiment and all that. So this will all be automated. Currently, it's all manual. We have to do this manually.
Okay, all right. You mentioned that there is no plan for an API for generate variations. I've seen like some blog posts where some people have like created custom AM components and then they integrated ChatGPT because like then this means Adobe is giving up this market to ChatGPT, for example, because like the people are using then ChatGPT API to provide such kind of AI functionality, prompt to text.
I think not sure. So we would love to, what we would like to look for is a way for building really focusing on that workflow that allows our customers to create content at scale. I understand that an API would be interesting for folks to build custom things. Yeah, I'm not saying that we might get there. Just right now, it's not focus. Focus is really around understanding what is the best possible workflow that we can offer. And so we're playing around with different things and making active, what we call VIP projects, right? Where we're working with customers directly and figuring out what the best workflow is. That's why, I mean, ultimately, right, we don't have to, all of the stuff that we're doing, all ChatGPT wrappers, right? So it's just a prompt. The prompt is sent to ChatGPT. So you can also do this yourself. Now, there's certainly something that we have included there that is specific to Adobe versus if you just go straight to ChatGPT. We have this what we call brand service as part of DX, where you as a brand can kind of define the tone of voice. How do you want to, because there's a certain amount of context or brand context that the LLM needs in order to produce decent content that a brand would put on their homepage. And I think that's the part that, I think that there was discussions wherever we can make that API available, not necessarily for generic variations, but just accessing the brand service as part of that. So then you can build your application using the same, because the rest is just LLM, it's just OpenAI.
Okay. Now, really, my last question. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So would you say generate variations is like one of the biggest AI topic right now from AM side next to Firefly?
Yes.
Or did I miss something?
No. That's it. And the next one will, again, the one that I mentioned, the more proactive, like bringing data that we collect, understanding the content that you have, and then providing suggestions of how to improve. But ultimately, all with the purpose of creating an experiment to try out if this works better than the other things. So we want to get customers into the idea into this workflow of perpetually improving their content, and because I think while folks agonize over analytics and data that they're collecting, we at least see, and happy to be wrong here, that not actually, like a lot of discussions are happening about what could be improved, but also ultimately not much actually gets done just because there was priority and other stuff and then too busy and whatever. And therefore, it's not getting. And so we want to cut that loop in saying, based on the data that we're looking at, a lot of that. Based on the data we're looking at, we feel like there's an opportunity. Here's a potential experiment that you could try. We can show you A, B, or C, or whatever. Say, hey, do you want to try this out? We think if you do the test, we might be able to reduce bounce rate by X, improve conversion by Y, or whatever it is. What metrics is you're tracking? And then we're really combining the generative AI with lots of capabilities to it. Again, we need to somehow, if you think of our strategy, we need to build higher level services, because again, anybody can integrate ChatGPT. I mean, I have it open all the time. I use it for work all the time. That is commodity. There's nothing for us to make here. But the combination of different data points and the content, I think, is where we certainly could bring some meaningful value to our customers.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all from my side.
Let me jump in. I think there are questions about edge delivery services. I know, like even Tom, whoever wants to jump in, I know you have questions.
Yes, I've been wanting to discuss just sort of where you guys feel like edge delivery is going from the perspective of creating more rich experiences and things. My understanding at this point is that it's relatively vanilla when it comes to JavaScript and the way that it's implemented. can you help me understand, is there a roadmap that goes beyond that? Or is it really, in order to get the speeds that we're looking for on edge delivery, we don't want to include a bunch of other libraries, or, there's some concerns or problems with trying to get the edge to serve things that way? Or just help me understand sort of where you guys see edge delivery going, so we can get a sense for the kinds of projects that we should be thinking about. We have clients asking, should we be looking at edge delivery? Should we be looking at moving from AEM to edge delivery? Just want to be able to answer some of those questions better and understand a little bit more.
Yeah. So
What do you want to create?
Pardon?
Sorry, Lars, I'll let you speak. But my usual question for this: what do you want to create? I haven't seen anything I can't do yet, but maybe you can show me something that I can't do.
Not can't do, but you have to understand time to implementation is a factor, right? Like, if you have a site that's incredibly reactive to input, then building all of that in vanilla JavaScript is going to take a whole lot longer than it would if you were using a framework like React. So there's an amount of time to deliver, right? A client expects to pay X amount of money. With vanilla JavaScript, it's going to cost more, right? Quite a bit more potentially, depending on how complicated the system is. I'm not saying you can't do anything. I'm just curious, where's the line between like, okay, this is just too much, we should build this in a more modern framework, versus using edge delivery. I'm just trying to get a sense for where you guys think about that.
Yeah, and so let me start by answering your last question first, which was, should we look at edge delivery services? And yes, you absolutely should. Right. If you are creating an experience that has the goal of serving experiences to a lot of visitors, where performance matters, where you actually are looking for business results, then edge delivery services is something that you have to look at. Now the next question is the one, are we capped regarding the complexity of things that can happen there, right? And that's where I'm with Cedric. I haven't seen the limit yet, right? And a part of this is simply due to the fact that the web as a platform has evolved extremely, right? And that there are a lot of capabilities that where 10 years ago, right, you would have said, absolutely, you need a framework like React in order to fill the gaps of the web platform. But in the meantime, the web platform has caught up, and I think approaches like edge delivery services are recognizing this, and that is the case, even if the major mindset of most web developers has not caught up with this yet, right? Where in a lot of cases, React is absolutely seen as the default and seen as a must-have, and this is really not reflective of what I'm seeing in the customer base. And I think that also explains, on the one hand, why we don't have an out-of-the-box React integration, right? Why actually we don't have out-of-the-box integrations with build processes and bundler, and basically anything that is encouraging you to stay on this dependency heavy on this dependency heavy way of building web applications, but it's encouraging the lightweight approach, right? And this is how we will continue to move forward. And on the other hand, it's not something that we are ruling out, right? Given the openness of the web platform, there's really literally nothing that we can do to prevent you from bringing in Vite and bringing in React and bringing in whatever state management framework on top of React you like. So that's definitely an option. It's just not something that we think is appropriate for the majority of sites that we are seeing our customers running, our customers building, and therefore we don't have it as part of the product.
Yeah, I might want to add, we do consider a lot of commerce projects, like rather complicated storefronts. And there we actually are using, for example, we write most of our code in Preact, not in React, but Preact, just a little smaller, a little more, a little less TBT, and well, a lot less TBT, but similar developer, I guess, fidelity or developer experience. Now, having said that, definitely one, if you know the performance, where does performance matter the most, right? And it's very straightforward. The performance matters the most in the first page view, and that's where React really disappoints. And so as long as you are having where most of the folks come in, where you have the biggest balances on your site, if you can optimize this and to make choices, smart choices about your technology to avoid huge bounce rates on those, and only whatever application complex thing you want to build is in your second page view or somewhere deeper down in the visit where you have a chance to preload certain parts of it or whatever you need to do, whatever tricks you can apply to reduce the amount of load on that next page, or use pre-rendering or one other tricks, which again pre-rendering can't be done on the first page view, but you can use pre-rendering on the second, right? And so if you can do all these things, that is definitely helpful. Again, so for commerce, same thing on the homepage, you really don't want to do any of this so that you have them, whatever 75p LCP on of 1 second, which is great. It's the probably lowest bounce rate you can get. But once you get to the second page, we have a PLP or whatever, there it's fine. And again, we're using Preact on most of the storefronts that are currently in production. And for example, for checkout, we're actually using React because some of the checkout components have been written in React in the past. And again, if you pre-render those, it's fine, it's fast.
Cedric, is that for? Are you so I do a lot of AEM and commerce projects. That's kind of a focus of mine. But are you talking about the out of the box Adobe Commerce libraries? Are you talking about Edge delivery for commerce?
No, that is Edge services together with Adobe Commerce. But again, it could also be used with other
Edge
commerce
delivery
engines.
with commerce.
It's okay. It's not. I can send you the link to the boilerplate. We have a boilerplate specifically for commerce.
I have that. Yeah, and we've looked at it.
Okay,
I just I don't know if I realized that the Preact was bundled with it. I hadn't dug in too deep, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and we use the other thing that we use a bridge, and the bridge then uses for example, we also use the PHP stuff from Adobe Commerce still in places where it makes sense. Because again, maybe just summarize, a lot of folks have invested heavily in frameworks in the past. That's fine. And you should really not just for the sake of rewriting, just for the sake of actually rewriting the whole thing. You really should rewrite the pieces that makes most sense from the performance point of view, where the performance really makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Again, I mentioned that, the first page view. And after that, again, there's other tricks that are available in order to reduce the load, and that's fine, right?
Would you recommend doing both then? Like if you have a client that's got a real, I don't know, their homepage for whatever reason is super slow, would you recommend they move their homepage to Edge delivery and leave the rest and start small?
Or, we have done that. We have exactly done that with many clients. Take the top 2 URLs or 10 URLs, whatever it is. Sometimes it's just one. Move that to Edge delivery services, and then the top leaving links, whatever the top leaving links is from that page, pre-render them. You have already a significant impact from that, just for that.
Got it. Thank you. That's all very helpful.
Okay. Do we have another question? Otherwise, I can read one from the chat. Tom, are you with us? I think your camera is jumping. Okay, we have a question. I work in Edge delivery in AEM with Universal Editor. Can we use experience fragment and content fragment? What is an approach of it? Lars? Or
Yeah, I can take that.
Good.
Content fragments, yes. Experience fragments, not yet.
So like content
Yeah,
fragment,
sure.
if you are using, okay. So we look at the blog section, okay, which is on in the documentation itself. We saw that, but whenever I have, like face the content fragment from the EM itself, I'm not getting any kind of
I'm going to try
data
speaking.
over
Can you
there.
hear me now?
Tom, give
Am I
Yes.
us
audible?
1 second. We're answering a
Yeah.
different question right now,
Oh, sorry.
but we can hear you. Yes. Okay. So sorry for the interruption. Please continue.
Okay, so like we are using EM, okay, and we have some external fragment and content fragment already present over there. Okay, and in the edge delivery service we are like want to fetch that particular data because it is already present and authored, and most of the content is over there itself on, and the same pages, okay, needs that particular content in the edge delivery. So we need an approach that how can we fetch all that data from GraphQL or from any other approach to make sure that it is working fine.
We'll take that.
Cedric, is that something that you can answer?
Does anyone has an experience on the EM, earlier experience on the EM?
That's something for you, Cedric, or who else?
Oh, I was pretty distracted. Can you just repeat the last part? I got the beginning, the last part. Sorry about that.
Okay, so basically we have most of the content present in EM, okay, sites, okay, over there in the form of a content fragment. So we want to reuse that particular content into the edge delivery services. So we need an approach that how can we consume that content, like by JSON, or just I can drag drop the content fragment into the edge delivery universal editor, and I can whether I can reuse that particular content.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah. So currently, first of all, this if most of your content is our content fragments, um, the the current only way is to load them client side. It's not ideal, but it can be done. We have some folks that have done that. We are working on, but it's still a little bit further out, the ability to actually bring content fragments as kind of native content, so to speak, into Edge Delivery Services. And so you basically publish your content fragment to Edge Delivery Services, and then it will be part of the initial HTML that gets delivered. But while we have started working on this capability, that is still a little bit further out. But it might still be, again, it would be interesting to hear what I know if you can reach out to me, you can DM me on, you can send me a DM on this one, to see why do you got folks want to do it. It would be interesting for us to kind of talk to see how we can help. It's basically the equivalent of using HTML services with a headless CMS, right? Because you have everything in content fragments, and you want to start reusing them. It'd be interesting to look into that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, great. Tom, I think
Thank
we are
you.
ready for your question.
John.
Yeah, it's not a technical question. It's an admin question. This project, call it what you will, has got 4 names: Franklin, Helix, Next Gen Composable, and Edge Delivery Services. A mouthful to explain to customers who have heard things through the years about what it's called. What's the official naming? What's the project? How do we refer to this going forward?
Yeah. So the official name is Edge delivery services in Adobe Experience Manager sites as a cloud service with document-based authoring, and Adobe Experience Manager sites as a cloud service-based authoring. And that is how everyone at Adobe is referring it to. Nobody is ever calling it anything that could be abbreviated in a three-letter abbreviation, according to branding guidelines. Historically, there have been a couple of iterations, right? So we started this project as Project Helix internally for 5 years. This has been seeping into, right, and as you know, the two hardest things in computer science are naming things, cache invalidation, and off by one errors. And we are really good at cache invalidation. So the naming things part got a bit in the way. So we started as Project Helix, and the way you develop things is the name seeps into the visible surface, right? So we have the Helix app command line, we have helix.live as and helix.page as domains, and over the course of the project, this got another relatively short-lived code name called Franklin, before then going into market as Edge delivery services in Adobe Experience Manager sites as a cloud service with document-based authoring, and Adobe Experience Manager sites as a cloud service-based authoring. And in the meantime, and that is what we introduced at Summit in 2023, was that we introduced next generation composability essentially as an architectural pattern within AEM. And Cedric, maybe you can answer this, if we are still talking about next generation composability as a pattern versus as a product, or if this is something that where the hype cycle is over and we just forget about it.
No, I think most folks refer to it as edge delivery services, just then it's clear what you're talking about. I think the trickiest part is the whole authoring thing, content sources, just because we support multiple content sources. A little hard concept to grasp how to talk about it. But I think it's fair to use edge delivery services as the technology that is the delivery tier. And then there's an API where you can publish from any content source into it. And one of them is, I know it's AEM, but AEM is also used as umbrella term, but basically, in comparison to like using Google Docs or SharePoint or any other headless CMS to publish into it. And so that's fine. But I think the Franklin and Helix we try not to use anymore. Of course, they're still in the documentation and everything, but the domain name will change. I don't know, Lars, if you want to quickly talk about that. It'll all be aem.live and aem.page. You might have talked about it in the prior session. Moving the domain name. So the HLX domain will go away.
Exactly. And I'm really looking forward to that.
More questions? Or
I have a question.
Yeah, Rob?
Yeah. So we've been trying to play around a little bit with using Project Crosswalk and using Universal Editor with a site based on that template. There's a template that's available that you can create in AIM as a cloud service, right? You can create a site from that template. It's a site template. And then you can bring it up in Universal Editor and you can modify components. So
where do you see the technology being in 2 to 5 years' time? You're going to replace the current AEM with edge delivery services? Will both still be supported in the market?
I think we're getting a bit of crosstalk. Raf, you were asking the first question, right?
I was, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Discord is not showing me your name, so please, sorry for that. Please start again.
Okay. Okay, so my turn still, right?
Sean, yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
So the question was, we have a AM as a cloud service instance, and we created a new site based on the site template, which is Edge Delivery Services friendly. So I'm sorry, Universal Editor friendly as well. So we can bring up Universal Editor, and we can point to that site, and we can work with the components. The question was, if we wanted to do something similar, do we have to create another site template for ourselves, which is Universal Editor friendly, and just understanding what those components need to look like in terms of that site template is something that we can use some help on. Is it just a matter of making them all Universal Editor friendly by looking at the documentation for each component? Because as you understand, the site template is interesting because the site template has all the .xml and all the content, which is used for creating out all the content structure, right? And it's Universal Editor friendly. But if we wanted to reverse engineer that using our own site, how do we do that? What's the approach to doing that? That's what I wanted to understand.
Okay. Yeah. So you are free to. I mean, is this site template that we created is just a like a
Yeah,
boilerplate, right?
right.
So it's just to kind of figuring out. We are starting new projects with that. Just as again, it's trying to also it's trying to also be minimal or as minimal as necessary, just to not having to you're having to delete too much things if you want to start a project. But I could totally imagine, particularly you folks as partners, to create your own set of site templates for specific use cases that you might want to further develop in the future, and then have those site templates available for projects that you want to do, right? So I think that's one first thing. Second is how does the whole thing work? And first of all, you don't really need site templates. Like this is just the site template was just for us to create an easy way to get started and kind of understand how it works. Again, there's no pre-requirement to use a site template. As long as the JCR structure is in the compliant way that Crosswalk the way Crosswalk expects it, then you're fine, right? So therefore, you can basically use I guess I don't know, I'm gonna say the old way, but if you can just whatever create your thing. What we haven't done is we haven't created an archetype, right? If that archetype way of creating new projects. That we haven't done because we felt like we don't really need any. Maybe the whole point was like, could we somehow get to a point where customers can start a project without having to deploy any code? And that was the site template. But I can totally imagine that you actually want to do your own extra things, and therefore you will actually need code to be run through the pipeline in order to run them. Yeah. But our initial idea was like, how can we get to a point that a simple site could be created without the need to run the pipeline, and you can just get started like that. But there's certainly more that will come down the road from our point of view, covering more use cases. But as you know, the entropy of components, right? It's tricky. So we can cover only so much. The whole core component concept is the 80-20 rule, right? We're doing 80% of the components somehow should be, or 80% of the surface of a website should be covered by components that we can provide. The 20 is the one that is specific to every customer, or maybe it's 10 or whatever it is. And then there's the folks and stuff they have to build custom.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I
have
have
a quick
question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Jeff?
Oh, thanks. My quick question is probably for Lars, and I apologize. I missed the deep dive on Helix 5, but I ran across something that's referred to Helix repo-less Helix 5.
Yes.
And I was wondering, could you explain exactly what that means?
Yes, absolutely. As you know, in Helix or in Adobe Experience Manager Sites as a cloud service with document-based authoring and edge delivery services, you generally create one GitHub repository. In that GitHub repository, you put an FSTab YAML that is pointing to a SharePoint, to a Google Drive, or to an AEM author instance, or to an AEM publish instance. And that means if you have a bunch of sites that essentially want to share the same design and the same code, the only way to do this at the moment is you copy over the repository, and then you have another job, which is to keep the code in sync, right? And sometimes you manage to outsource this job to GitHub Actions, which is then replicating code. But sometimes it's really on you, right? So, and this is something that we're seeing across a couple of customers who are running these essentially site factories, right? Whether it's language specific sites, market specific sites, or whether they are just running a lot of microsites, smaller sites, with the same design. And in the new architecture, which is available on aem-live instead of Helix Live, you can you basically create one site that has this repository, just like you did before. And then through the admin API, you are then able to create additional sites, right? And you can say this site should use the existing repository as which is already there, right? So and that means you have not just one, but you have 2, 3, 4, n sites running off the same code repository, each one with different content, of course. Right, and if you update the code in one repository, it's updating a bunch of sites in one go, and you don't have to worry about replicating code. So this is what we call repo-less, and it's a bit of
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like serverless for GitHub
to,
repositories. Go ahead.
Will there be a lift to convert what's already been done, or is it you get it for free?
So
when Helix 5 is released.
So if you have a site that is running on main -- your repository name -- your GitHub org.hlx.live, you can replace the hlx.live with aem-live right now and can see what your site is looking on. So it's completely backwards compatible. Obviously, once you use this new admin API and you create a site that is repo-less, this won't work on helix.live anymore. Right? So that's the big difference. So all sites that are running on Helix Live are also available on aem-live, and but the reverse won't be true. And as Cedric said, right, once the last site is getting traffic on hlx.live, we're going to turn off the domain and call it a day.
Cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's an awesome fix to a problem that I had run into myself. Thanks for explaining that.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we have Jason, or is that your name?
Yep, it's
Okay.
Jason. So I'm an AEM engineer, and I've been tasked with looking into some of the edge delivery stuff. And in trying to get the universal editor working locally, there's like a couple things I don't quite understand. So I have the universal editor working, and it's communicating with my local AEM as a cloud service SDK. And then there's also the AEM proxy where I could do, CSS or JavaScript development using what's live, essentially that page that would be live. But what I don't kind of understand is if I have the universal editor and I'm, authoring how I see the JavaScript and CSS changes in that universal editor, I don't know if there's just like a connection that I'm not getting, but there's that piece that I don't quite understand for local development, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I'm not. Derek is not here. But I know there might be a few things still missing actually for us to really offer that up, that the local development works. I know that because we have right now we're proxying the HTML services pages in order to put in the instrumentation for Universal Editor into the pages, because but actually I don't know, I need to figure it out. I actually don't know myself if this is actually completely working already, or it might not even.
Okay, cool.
yet. Or if the code already made it. I mean, the code is in the product clearly because it works in production, but whatever it has managed to get into the SDK.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we are up to the hour.
Do we want to take
So
one last question?
I think Lars. Yes, let's go for one.
I've got one if nobody else does.
Great. Go ahead.
Let's go.
Hey, so I just wanted to read something to you guys and get your take because this is from the README for Edge Delivery Services for the code base. Says, while possible, it's not necessary or recommended to implement custom AEM components. Components for Edge Delivery Services provided by AEM are sufficient and offer certain guardrails to ease development. Components provided by AEM render a markup that can be consumed by Helix HTML2MD when publishing to Edge Delivery Services and by AEM.js when loading a page in Universal Editor. The markup is the stable contract between AEM and the other parts of the system and does not allow for customizations. For this reason, projects must not change the components and must not use custom components. That feels kind of crazy to me. Is that actually the recommended, like, do you recommend that customers don't use anything custom for Edge delivery? And like, how would you get around that for anything that doesn't marry up exactly with those core components? You said 80-20, Cedric. That seems higher than what I would tunes for a client that has, you know, certain. I'm just curious to get you guys' take on that. Do you really feel like it's at that point where you should be able to just use Edge delivery with the components provided straight out of the box?
So here's the thing: components in AEM, when used together with Edge Delivery Services, certainly have a different definition, right? Components in the traditional AEM way, you had the model, which was you had a model and the view, controller sling, but you had a model and the view. Both were in AEM. Of course, you made a lot of changes to the model potentially, but most changes were done in the view. Now with HTML services and Crosswalk, the view is no longer in AEM. Well, no longer in the view is the block, right? Of course, there you can make arbitrary amount of changes. You can have as many blocks as you want, right? There's no limits to how many blocks you want. So the only, I don't know, sounds a little harsh, but the thing that's less in AEM, because AEM becomes a headless CMS at this point, right, is really the model. Right? The question is, are we supporting custom models? Right? The language, preciseness of the language here, okay? So are we, so like, we're supporting, you can have as many blocks you want, but are we supporting custom models? And I think that is certainly something right now, or for the initial version of Crosswalk, we said, hey, here's X amount of models that we are providing. And we have created the mapping of these models through the MD as the things goes through the content pipeline, right? And yes, with those, you can, we have built already interesting pages with that. But I think there's definitely, again, this is the current, and I know, thank you for reading this, but that just reminded me that we might should change that language a little bit. So I think we definitely want to figure out how you can bring in your own models and how do you provide the mapping to those. I could certainly imagine that there's certain things, certain content you want to collect or being made authorable that, again, in this case, we're talking about content models, and that then will map to MD, and then ultimately, again, you can make it. So, yeah.
Hey, sorry for that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I know some of the times the documentation lags, so I just wanted to hear your take, and that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so I think
Thanks, Evan.
We are done with time. Okay. I mean, yeah, the last thing I always say is what is next. I think we go
Yeah.
shortly into the short summer break, but I just discussed with Lars, maybe we try to do another session in around 2 weeks. Next week, I think it's completely booked with other things, but I think we will do one in 2 weeks. I will put it on soon when we decide exactly what kind of topic we have, because we always need experts.
Okay. Well then, I have to thank Cedric. I have to thank Ralph. I have to thank Evan. I have to thank Sean. I have to thank Tom and everybody else asking questions today. And of course, everyone dialing in. It's always great to see you. It's always great to hear from you. And please let us know in the chat if you want to do some of these ask us anything sessions again. We've been getting a bit of mixed feedback. Nobody showed up last week, but this time we are getting more questions, or plenty of questions to fill. Oh, what's happening? To fill the hour and beyond. So what I just said was thank you for being here. Thanks for asking questions. Thanks for answering questions. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye. Thanks.